Welcome to the Health Changers across the pond and back. All of us here are passionate about helping people to change their health destiny. And our topics today, we're going to start with Dr. Frank Sabatino, jumpstarting your new year and making healthy changes. Janie's going to be talking about baby steps and small changes that you can make. And I'm going to be talking about creating your wellness center. And Gareth is going to be talking about the eighth wonder of the world, your body. Okay, so let me introduce our amazing, amazing panel. Dr. Frank Sabatino has been plant-based, I don't know, since Moses parted the Red Sea. He's completed a book called Weightless, Compassionate Weight Loss for Life. And he has an online course called Lean for Life, The Science of Effective Weight Loss. And you can find more at drfranksabatino.com. Jayney Goddard is the president of the Complementary Medical Association. She's one of the leading experts on anti-aging. I mean, please look at the woman. I mean, like, in integrative medical fields. She's written several bestsellers, and you can find her information at jayneygoddard.org. And Gareth, he helps people to reduce or eliminate high blood pressure medication with his no meds method. You can contact him through the healthchangers.net website in case you haven't seen that. And I am Jeanne Schumacher. I am founder of simplyplantbased.net, and I've got several programs to help people transition to a healthy lifestyle, including the Weight Loss Advantage, which helps people to lose 50 to 100 pounds without dieting. Love that part. And the Pregnancy Advantage to help women get their bodies pregnant ready. And coming soon is plantbasedlatino.net with Dr. Maria Jose de la Fuente from Bolivia. We are connecting to help people who speak Spanish to get through and get to a healthy lifestyle. We're going to jump right in with Dr. Frank Sabatino. He's going to be talking about jumpstarting your new year.
Hi, first of all, I'd like to just extend best wishes to everybody as they enter this new year. Hopefully it'll be a lot more pleasant than the last one. As you know, it's been a tough time for everyone. But this is a time when we enter New Year's where many times people are making resolutions and they talk about, trying to make healthier changes or changes in their lives. And of course, this is a great thing to do because many times making changes, being successful at it and committing to it, it builds our self-esteem, builds our ability to think better about ourselves, to improve, our personal lot in life and really move ourselves along a healthier path. And for those of us that have spent many, many years teaching people about making healthier changes, most of what we talk about is not, rocket science. They're really very basic changes, improving how we eat, how we move, how we deal with the stressful events of our lives, our personal relationships. And as much as it is very simple to talk about, the actual expression of that in our real world sometimes can be somewhat difficult. And so I think as we enter this new year and I talk to you about making change, I think it's important to start thinking about what you can do in a simple way to start really looking and examining your life just a little bit closer. Socrates, the famous Greek physician, before he drank the Kool-Aid, talked about the fact that the worth of our lives is really based to a certain extent on our ability to self-examine, to really look a little closer at where we are, what we're doing, and really what the consequences of our choices and actions are. And I think that's a really important piece because we all have that ability to look at what we're doing and what we have achieved by what we're doing. What are the real consequences of what we have incorporated into our lives? And are they consistent with the kinds of goals that we would like to achieve? It's funny, I worked in a health center for many years, over 25 years, the Regency, and people would often come in, people that I've worked with over many, many years. And it was interesting how many of them would try to hide from me for a few days before they came in to confess about all that bad stuff they did at home. You don't know me, many of you, but I'm about as far away from a priest as you're ever going to get in your natural lifetime. I can guarantee you that. But one of the problems is we live in what I like to call a very Judeo-Christian culture, where we're always looking at the good, the bad, the evil, and this concept almost of a sin-like mentality. And I want to really shift that because I think we need to reframe that when you're looking at making change. And that means the following. If, when people would come in and they would then confess about the so-called bad stuff they did in their lives, the truth of the matter is I basically told them that doesn't mean much to me. What is important is what does it mean to you? So for example, if you came to me and said, I want to be fatter than ever. I want to be unable to take a few steps in my environment without stopping to gasp for breath. And all of your choices were leading to that outcome. I applaud you. But if you come into me and say, you know what, I want to be thinner, I want to be healthier, I want to be able to perform better in every aspect of my life, and all of the choices you're making are creating consequences that move you away from that, there comes a time where all of us have to put the big boy pants on because nobody can really do that for you. So I think the first step in change is taking a good look at what am I doing routinely? What are the choices that I'm making in how I'm eating, in how I'm moving, in my relationships, in romantic relationships, with my family, with my children, with my friends? And are those choices creating consequences that are moving me closer to what I would like to achieve? If they are, you need to embrace them. And if they're not, how can you then set something different in motion? So I like to replace that concept of sin and good choices versus bad with this idea of evolution and change, and using every choice you make has a consequence. And one thing we can safely say is that when you make a choice, there's another one immediately lurking around the corner. So why get lost in the last one you made? Why beat yourself up with something that you feel may not be right, may not fit into some plan that someone has told you about or that you have read about or learned about? What can you do? What can each of us do? What can I do? You do to take the consequences of our own actions, examine them more closely, and then use that information to foster a better opportunity, a better choice, a better opportunity for something new to become part of us. And understand that when you're making choices, all the ones you've made up to now have had a long history, a long opportunity to weave their way into your behavioral tapestry, into this incredible tapestry of your nervous system that is really the reflection of all the patterns and choices that operate within us. But if you want to make something new part of that tapestry, it has to be given some opportunity to weave its way in it. So for example, whether it's a new food choice or a new activity choice or a new stress management approach that you want to take, as you do those more repeatedly, they have an opportunity now to become a part of you. Just the same way all the other choices that you made up to now have had that opportunity. And I also urge you to understand that some of these choices you've been making, there are going to be some difficulties because they may have some addictive component. We talk about, I grew up in an Italian household. Getting off of dairy products was very difficult for me at first, way back in the day. And then I come to realize later, as many people know now, that dairy products have an opioid-like content. There's the casein protein in milk is involved with casomorphines in the body. So there's a morphine-like component. So there's an addictive quality to that, as there is with sugar, as there is with salt, as there is with even animal products. So it's important to realize that when you want to make these changes, that you have to give yourself some support. You have to give yourself and love yourself enough while you give that time factor for recovery, that time factor for the new choice to weave its way within your behavioral tapestry. And it will over time, but it really does a much better job of doing that when you come from a place of self-support, self-love, self-esteem. And that does mean trying to keep commitments with yourself. So as you go into this new year and you make a resolution, let's say, to maybe eat less sugar or less dairy, or you're going to try going plant-based for some period of time, understand that there might be a time factor for you to be able to achieve that outcome as those new choices get a chance to become part of you. And the more you do that, the more you commit to those choices, every time you make it, you're giving a new pathway in that brain and nervous system a chance to establish itself. That's why in science and physiology, we talk about something called facilitation, where information tends to travel over old familiar roads in your nervous system or in life. So the choices you've made up to now, in a way, have etched these patterns, these pathways. Now you want something new to become part of you. You got to give it a chance. You have to give it an opportunity. And you have to give it an opportunity by being consistent. If you look at any process of change or anything you've ever learned, whether it's driving a stick shift automobile or learning to play a musical instrument or dance moves, what you find is at first, all of those steps are very disjointed. But as you practice that act, it becomes what Luria, one of the great brain scientists, called a kinetic melody. It becomes a melody within the fabric of the nervous system. So now it becomes a smooth flowing act. Well, lifestyle choice is no different. At first, it may seem very disjointed. People are telling you this is beneficial, do this, do that, and you may get lost in a quandary. And of course, with the internet, that gets even worse. But my advice is, as you select some very simple things that we have all been sharing with this HealthChangers approach that we present to you, give yourself a chance to understand that everything that you learn requires three things: patience, practice, and consistency. There is nothing that you will ever learn or do that doesn't require that. So that little bit of patience involves what I like to call that sense of self-support and self-love, even when you're not quite there yet, even when you haven't been totally perfect in addressing and adopting that change. Just understand, by staying with it and practicing it and being patient with it and being more consistent, it will eventually become a smooth flowing act. It will become a kinetic melody in your process of choice and change. So I urge you to understand that, yes, change is essential, especially with health. We need to adopt those choices that support healthy living. And depending on where you are right now, that may be big steps or big change, or it may not be. But no matter what you have to do, I'm urging you to be patient with the fact that there will be some time factor to recover and assume and adopt those changes, letting them inform your brain and nervous system, and to have some self-love, to love yourself, even during those times when you may feel like you're falling off track. In all the years of doing everything I've done, including change in my own life, I don't know anybody that hasn't had the situation where they have fallen down, where they've fallen off track. Truly successful people, though, are people that get back on track in some reasonable period of time. So give yourself a chance to understand that there may be a time factor for some of those addictive habits that you may have in your life. But as you are patient and you practice alternative choices and you reframe that information of your life and the information that you're trying to adopt, over time, you will give yourself a chance to weave that into your behavior. And then you'll find yourself getting to a place where I tell people, where when you look back, you'll have a hard time believing that that's where you once were. And that actually happens to everybody that makes change. So at this time, yes, I urge you to make some resolution, to examine your life more carefully, look closely at the consequences of the actions that you're taking, and then see what you can incorporate that's going to give you a chance to really achieve those goals. So it's no problem with setting goals. I urge you to do it. But then link those goals to the consequences of your actions. And in that mindful self-examination, you will really take charge. You'll take power over finally incorporating changes in your life. And as you do, you'll feel those victories. You'll have that sense of winning, that sense of self-esteem and self-validation that comes while you're now allowing the body to express the highest level of health and integration that it can. So love yourself. Look at yourself more closely, give yourself a chance with time to make these changes, and allow yourself to really bring yourself on that path of evolution and change and away from these preconceived notions of failure, guilt, sin, all of that, which really is counterproductive to our success. But each of us has the ability within our consciousness to evaluate everything that we do and see if that's where we want to be, or is it someplace we want to go to, and what can we do to give ourselves that opportunity to win and be successful on that path of evolution and change.
Father Frank, I have to say, that was amazing. That was truly, truly incredible. And I just love that idea of the blending it together and creating this kinetic melody, because it has taken me a long time to understand. And I love, there's a Japanese saying that fall down 7 times, get up 8. And I just love that idea, because we all fall down. We do. We all fall down. And I just think it's so powerful when we start to learn this idea that we can love ourselves and forgive ourselves.
Yeah, just really well put, Frank. Couldn't agree more, but just lovely the way you expressed that. Great stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to echo your sentiments, everybody. I thought that was really powerful. And I particularly love that, you know, in fact, actually, I slightly changed what you said. You know, I think you said patience, practice, and consistency. I changed it to the 3rd P because I love a little bit of alliteration. So perseverance.
I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. I'll steal that. That's good.
3 Ps. But yeah, no, it's beautiful. Absolutely loved it. Completely agree. All of the neuroscience that I'm obsessed with at the moment on resilience and so on, because I'm looking at putting together a resilience training. As you know, we've spoken about it, and you know, it's incredible. You know, this idea of, you know, what we can, you know, be gentle with ourselves, but the consistency, the perseverance, it does repattern our neurology. It really does. And you know, and actually the converse happens, doesn't it? Insofar as, again, if we fall off the wagon and then we continue to pursue that without doing what Jeanne says, you know, fall down 7 times, get up 8 times. If we continue to, you know, sort of mollycoddle ourselves and oh poor me and go in and buy into all of that without actually making an act of will, then, you know, again, we also see that repatterning as well. So we've got to be incredibly careful about the thoughts that we actively choose and so on. And one of the things I know, an exercise that people might not know about, which I think is wonderful, is something that actually builds willpower, which is using your non-dominant hand for certain everyday tasks, like brushing your teeth, for example. Not so great if you're an ambidextrous person, but if you're not ambidextrous and you have a dominant hand and a non-dominant hand, try brushing your teeth every day, or putting the shoe on that you don't normally put on first. Put that one on first. These are little things that actually start to kind of not shock our brains, but they actually kind of start that repatterning ability to, it kind of supercharges it. So again, that's something that I talk about quite a lot, and I've found has been very, very beneficial for a lot of people.
Did you mention that in your book, Jayney? Did you write about that in your book?
I think I did, actually, yes. Yeah, it's something
I tried it and I was an hour late for a meeting, you know?
My apologies. Sorry, but it does work. It does work.
Okay. It'll take some practice. We have to be persistent and be patient with ourselves and love ourselves, as Father Frank has said. So anyway, moving forward, Jayney is going to be talking about the baby steps, the small changes that you can make that almost imperceptibly add up to big differences to health on all levels, from a mental, emotional, a physical, and a spiritual aspect.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeanne. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeanne. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, and a very, very happy new year to everybody. Jeanne, I've got some notes here because I've got some thoughts. I've been giving this a lot of thought, and the idea of baby steps is, I love it because it takes the pressure off people. It takes the fear of maybe not achieving goals away, and it does make things just that little bit more doable for people. And I'm all for easy wins, because again, you know, going back to this idea of the way that our our neurogenesis happens. So the way that we develop new patterning within our brains and the way that actually, new brain cells develop, our brains and other bodily systems actually tend to facilitate what we do the most. As I was just saying earlier, the more you think positive, happy, wonderful thoughts, the better, and you can more easily facilitate those. If you hang out with really negative people, if you think really sad thoughts, if you sort of perseverate over things, again, your brain elegantly repats itself so you can do that more easily. So what I like to do is to give people easy wins. These easy wins are really great things that we can do without it being a big deal. And so almost by stealth, we repattern the way our brains work and also the way that we gain massive benefit for our physical systems as well, our bodies. So the first thing that came out of this little thing that I set up for New Year is I've got a Facebook group. It's called Rewind Your Body Clock. And in that, I put up a little post thinking nobody was going to be interested. It's called Jayney's January Jaunt. I'm thinking about it, because I'm back into that alliteration mode. I don't know why. Me and alliteration, I have no idea what that's about. Probably stems from childhood, but I blame the parents. But I should have called it Jayney's Jolly January Jaunt, and then I've had 4 J's, wouldn't I? So what it involved, and I just challenged people. I said, look, can we get outside for 30 minutes a day? As a minimum, just walk outside for 30 minutes a day. You don't have to power walk, you don't have to do anything, just got to get outside and walk for 30 minutes a day for a minimum of 5 days a week. Now, of course, I appreciate that is something that's literally Frank Sabatino's program 101. This is something that Frank says, if you can stand up, if you can lift a fork from your plate to your mouth, you can get out and walk. And I totally agree. So that's one of it really hit home for me. It's something that's benefited me so greatly, is literally just getting outside and walking for a minimum of 30 minutes a day for a minimum of 5 days a week. And I didn't think anybody was going to find that particularly interesting because, I see all these groups coming up, you've got to get out there, you've got to pump iron, you've got to walk for 2 hours a day, speed walking for 2 hours a day, resistance training, steady state cardio, yada, 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 and it really is very macho. It really is very, very hard. And I tried it. I'll be honest with you. I did try walking for, an hour in the morning, hard walking, hill climbing and all the rest, to get to the point where your pulse rate is around about 130, thereabouts. So you sort of should be in fat burning mode, so on. And you know what? As a person with 2 knee replacements, no, it doesn't work for me. It really, really doesn't. It didn't work for me time-wise either. So I was getting so stressed about the amount of time I was spending doing this challenge, this walking challenge that somebody else was doing and shredding program. And it just didn't work. And anyway, I couldn't take that much time out of work. So I thought, well, what if we just flip this around and make it really, really doable for people? So I just, as a sort of, suck and see, I put it up in my group. And literally loads of people have said, wow, that's a really good idea because it's totally achievable. We can all do that. And we like the fact that you're saying 30 minutes a day as a minimum, but you can do more if you want. It doesn't matter what time of day you do it whenever you can fit it in. And even if it's 2 walks, perhaps 15 minutes to walk and then 15 minutes back, it's fine. It's still your 30 minutes. And so people have looked at it as being a totally easy, achievable win. So as we know, that goes to build willpower. It's what Frank was saying about not beating yourself up and feeling really negative about yourself because you didn't manage to do 2 hours of heavy, hardcore walking a day. You can get out and do that little, January jaunt with Jayney or whomever you want to do it with. So that was one thing. So that was an easy win to me. So that was the first lot of sort of baby steps. Now, the second thing is that just a green smoothie a day. Now, why? Okay. The reason is, and I know that we all know this in this group, but if anybody listening in and watching in is not sure about this, the reason why it's really good to have a green smoothie. Now, what is a green smoothie? A green smoothie is a smoothie that contains green leafy vegetables. If you put green leafy veggies into a smoothie, particularly if you've got a high-speed blender like a Vitamix or similar, what happens is you can put a massive great handful of kale or a massive great handful of spinach, or a massive great handful of broccoli and Brussels sprouts, a huge great plateful really that you wouldn't actually be able to chomp your way through if it was raw. You wouldn't be able to because it would take you too long, and also the fact is that it might not be terribly palatable, and it would take you a long time as well. Who's got time in their life for eating a massive great piled high plate of just raw spinach or raw broccoli or raw kale? And also, of course, there are other good reasons, because they are potentially goitrogenic. So we might not want to do that if we particularly have problems with our thyroid glands. So if you put them into a smoothie maker, like a Vitamix or what have you, it partially breaks down the cell walls, it breaks down the plant substance so that it actually tends to remove that goitrogenic effect, which has a negative impact on your thyroid gland. So a lot of people who've been told by their doctors that they should avoid brassicas and avoid green leafy veggies, like my mum has been told to avoid those. And I've said, no, mum, but she said, oh, but the doctor said. And I'm saying, no, mum, that's not how it works. They don't have to. If you can put it into your smoothie, that's great. Now, the other thing about putting all of those into a smoothie is the fact that you can't taste it. So you'll add fruits in, you'll add maybe some plant milk or coconut milk or what have you, or just plain water. It's absolutely fine. You could add in things like maca, you could add in things like inulin, you can add in all sorts of other really beneficial additions to your smoothie. So why? What are we doing with a smoothie? Well, of course, it's very, very calorie poor, but nutrient rich. It's a nutritional, well, it's a nutrition bomb. And the other wonderful thing about it is that it's very, very filling. So it's highly likely that a smoothie might well be able to carry you through till lunchtime. So what it's doing is it's actually crowding out things that you might decide you would like to normally have for breakfast, let's say toast and butter and jam or whatever. If you have your green smoothie, it's very filling and it crowds out the things that aren't so good for us while replacing all of that not so good stuff with massive amounts of nutrition. So it's kind of like stealth nutrition without even realizing it. One of the things I do, sometimes I'll do is I'll add in a scoop of lovely, good, clean protein powder. I've found a particularly clean one here in the UK. There's also a particularly good one in the USA as well. So these are also really lovely things that can help to address food cravings, because we crave foods, don't we, when our nutrition is not on point, where we're not getting all of the vitamins and minerals and other nutrients, phytonutrients and so on that we need. If you ever found yourself, for example, standing at the fridge, opening the fridge going, God, I really want something, but I don't know what it is. That's where we're subconsciously craving something. We don't know what it is because our bodies know they need something, but our brains don't actually translate that into articulating and telling us what exactly it is that we're after. So if you have this nutrition bomb first thing in the morning, you are meeting those beforehand unmet nutritional needs, and you will find that you're not then standing at the fridge or the cupboard going, I really want something but I just don't know what it is. You'll find your food cravings will go. So that's the second thing. And then the third baby step is, and I've started to do this, and boy oh boy has it worked for me. I do have sleep difficulties. My dad had sleep difficulties. I think there was a bit of a genetic component there. And so what I've started to do is actually do what they say in all the literature, set up a wind down routine at night. What I do after 9 is I turn off all my screens, no screens after 9. I'll put on an audio book or I'll put on some lovely calming music. I light my candles in the living room. This is not in the bedroom, this is in the living room. And just making it really, really cozy. I'll turn down the overhead light. I've got a chandelier in my living room, which has got it's got 12 really, really bright lights in it, which is great if you need to do something that requires a lot of light. But after 9 o'clock, that gets turned down or off. And I've just got candlelight and soothing music or a nice ebook that I'm listening to or a podcast, something like that. And try to head to bed about 10 o'clock. And by 10 o'clock, I'm actually ready to go to sleep. And I'm managing to sleep all the way through. If I do wake in the night, I've just bought a little device called Sensate. It looks like a pebble and it vibrates. You place this on your chest. It vibrates in your chest cavity. And what actually happens is that it stimulates your vagal nerve. So basically what happens is it flips you from being in your fight or flight stressed out mode of being more dominant from a sympathetic nervous system perspective to flipping you to a parasympathetic dominance, which is our rest, recuperate, and relaxation mode. So again, I found this Sensate device to be amazing. If I wake in the night, instead of going into the spiral of, oh my gosh, tomorrow I've got to do this. Oh my gosh, tomorrow I've got to do that. Oh, I should have done this today. Darn it, what an idiot. I should have done that. And I start really getting stressed and just crazy about things. I get the Sensate on. It also comes with an app that plays a particular piece of music, and the Sensate and the app work hand in hand. And it makes me go back to sleep without fail, which I find absolutely astonishing. So it's a cool little device. I don't have anything to do with the company. I'm not on commission. This is not an affiliate link. It's just that if I do find something that works, I will tend to share it. Okay. And so, I'm just saying it works for me. It might work for you, it might not, but check it out anyway. But one of the reasons I checked it out was because they found that vagal nerve stimulation with an implant has been shown to reverse rheumatoid arthritis. So that's what piqued my interest. And I have to say, it's working for me from a relaxation, recuperation perspective. That's me done. Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, everybody.
A couple of things I wanted to point out. One is I loved the Janie's jaunt, and that was brilliant. And so if you can do something that is like that on a day-to-day basis, that's great. It's easy to do. But the thing is, you have to schedule it. It has to get into my calendar. If it's on my calendar, then it's going to happen. So that's my one thing. I have to make sure it's on my calendar. And then the smoothie. Oh my God, Dr. David Denayev has done a couple of studies. And the most recent one is titled, and we've done an interview on this. It's published, but we did an interview on it. It's called The Smoothie Lowers the C-Reactive Protein and Raises Plasma Beta Carotene in 7 days. Okay. So what he did several groups. And the one group in particular was just, people eating the SAD diet, the standard American diet. And he added a smoothie. It's a 32-ounce smoothie. That's it. That's the only changes that they made. And in the group, they saw an increase in nutrients based upon this is all done by blood work, an increase in nutrients of 50%, and then a decrease in inflammation measured by the C-reactive protein of 43% in 7 days.
Yeah.
Wow. So powerful.
And I'll just add one thing, because many times when you're making changes in family, one of the hard things that people encounter is making changes for their children. Smoothies work really well with children, especially when you put that additional berries and fruit and mix that with those greens. Many times they'll be consuming a quantity of those plants that they normally would not. And it really helps the family and the children in terms of their own energy, health, and behavior to remarkably improve. And they'll gravitate to drinking and doing those more. So it's a nice tool even with children. And that's a whole other area of discussion, but it's a very valuable way to help them too.
I'd like to ask a question if I can. That's why I love being on with you guys all the time. Is when we have a smoothie, we're condensing down the nutrition, obviously, and taking a big dump of it into our body. Is there anything we need to look out for? Is there any negatives to that at all?
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing that happens. Speaking of dumps, you will take some epic dumps. Okay, there's just no delicate way to say that. You are going to have some serious amount of stuff coming out of you, and it's going to help push that it's all fiber that's coming through, and it's going to help your gut biome. It's on so many different levels. It's going to be amazing, but it will change the quality of it, and I've seen a change in myself in that characteristic.
Gareth, this is the value of the smoothie, in that because you're incorporating the whole plant and you have the fiber content as well as the nutrients, very much like eating, there's only, again, so much you're going to drink, but by having that additional nutrition, many people can tolerate that and absorb that because they're running on empty so much, and their diet is oftentimes so relatively deficient in those nutrients. Getting that little extra burst actually has value for them. So I haven't really seen drawback. And in the smoothies I recommend, we put fruit, we put hemp or chia seed in it or flaxseed, we put greens. So you get a good broad base of fruits, vegetables, omega-3, fatty acids, things of that nature. And it has a lot of value for people as a rule. I've done retreats where we've done, something like 3 smoothies a day and only that in terms of detoxification and health programs. And people have thrived very well on that. So certainly having 1 smoothie a day, I don't see any drawbacks to that at all, truthfully.
Great. Okay. Thanks for that, Frank.
So my topic today I wanted to talk about was your wellness center, otherwise known as your kitchen. And because there's things that I can't change what's going on outside. There's a lot of very negative things that are happening in this world, in this universe. And I just can't change that. But what I can do is change what's going on in my world. And in my world, that is my kitchen, my home. And I just want to share with you a couple of things that you can do to help change and make your home your wellness center. In your wellness center, your health is only going to be good as the fuel that you ingest. When I say fuel, I'm talking about food, because that's what is our fuel. And we're talking about obviously whole food, plant-based. And the kitchen is going to be the heart of your transformation, because you can't control what's going on outside of your house and your home, but you can control what's going on inside. And one of the things that I absolutely love, 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 because I'm a former food addict, and I'll be the first to go hi. I'm Jeanne Schumacher, and I'm a food addict. Okay. So one of the things I love about this is that I can go into my kitchen and I can eat anything that's in my kitchen, because only good things come into my wellness center and things that are going to be helpful towards my health. So let's just talk about some useful items that you're going to want to have in your wellness center. So let's talk about pots and pans. And initially in the beginning, you might still have some of your old pots and pans, but you might want to make some investments down the road. And what I love is these pans. They're called Swiss Diamond. They come from Switzerland. And over on your side of the pond, you have a lot more regulation. It's called the precautionary principle. And you have to prove that things aren't going to be harmful before you can sell it. Not so here on this side of the pond. They can do anything they want, and they do. There's no regulations on so many of these levels. But I just love these Swiss Diamond because nothing sticks to them. I mean, including I've got the griddle from Swiss Diamond, and I love making pancakes on Sunday morning. And I literally can almost take the griddle and flip them just by flipping the griddle up. And that's how nonstick it is. It's incredible. A girlfriend of mine uses Scan Pan, and she recommends, they come from Denmark. I have never tried a Scan Pan, but she loved them. Instant Pot, oh my gosh, game changer, without question. You can use this on so many different levels, but the best part is you can use it, you set it to go, and you walk away. I don't have to worry about is the pot boiling over? If I go in and work in my office, is it boiling over? Is it cooking? Is the pot burning on the stove? I don't have to worry about that. Instant Pot goes into, once it's done cooking, it goes into a low mode. And then you come back and it's just gently warming the food until you're ready to open it up. But you can make soup in this. You can start by, cooking the process in here, like with the saute function. You can do all kinds of things. And one thing that's not shown on this Instant Pot, this is an older picture, but you can make yogurt. That has just been such a great change for me. And adding that to my diet, especially, I've started making this, I call it Simply Tzatziki, which is a Greek sauce. Oh, so good. I've nailed that. Oh my gosh. But Instant Pot's game changer. And I strongly recommend not 1, 2. You buy 2 of the same size, because you can switch out the liners. And, and I also recommend to get another liner. You can buy them separately, and you get an extra liner. And that way, while you've got 2 things going on in the Instant Pot, you can be working on making a third, because on the weekends, these Instant Pots are going all the time. I'm making some kind of grain, some kind of bean, some kind of potato, sweet potato, Yukon Golds, whatever. But these babies are going all weekend long. I'm making soups and things. I'm getting set for the week. These are silicone baking mats, which you can get them like locally, Amazon or Bed Bath & Beyond has them. You roll them out onto your cookie sheet and nothing sticks to them, and they're brilliant. I just love these things. And I roast my vegetables on these things because it just makes it so easy that they don't stick. You have to have a blender, and the Vitamix is the queen of the blenders. You know, there's some other ones like the Ninja blender, that's pretty good too. But the Vitamix is just the queen. And, you know, like the lights dim when my blender turns on because like it's so powerful. This is like 11 amps. And especially when you're making this morning smoothie that we were talking about, you need a powerful blender to blend this down. So definitely without question. And the next thing I recommend, and this is not something you need in the beginning, but you need to have a good set of knives. And the ones that I found that I've loved, and I've tried several different brands, but the ones I've settled on are Wursthof that come from Germany. But I really, really like those. And you want to keep your knives sharp. So you either find someone who can sharpen your knives or learn how to sharpen your knives yourself, because a dull knife is going to cause you more problems than a very, very sharp. A sharp knife just makes it so much more pleasant to be chopping all these vegetables that you have to do on a day-to-day basis. That is my focus on your wellness center and just a few tips and tricks that I have shared along the way. So I hope you can get something out of that.
I thought that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think a lot of people don't realize, you know, just sort of how, you know, these workhorses, these things that we use every single day. It's quite extraordinary. I mean, my Vitamix is used every single day, and I got it. I don't know about how long you guys have had your Vitamixes. Other brands are available, but you know, it just seems to go and go and go. And probably, I think I probably got mine in around about 2009, something like that. So you know, it's elderly. And yes, it's used every day, twice a day sometimes, if not more. So these things, you know, people think, gosh, they're very expensive, but they are actually very sturdy, very, very robust, and I think actually worth the investment. The one thing that I use that's slightly different to what you use is in the way of knives. I use ceramic knives. I do a lot of raw food prep, and so I was taught that ceramic knives tend not to oxidize fruits and veggies when you cut them. Now, I don't know if that's true, and I was wondering if you might be able to say.
I never have heard that, so no. So I'm just a newbie when it's coming to knives. I've tried several different ones, you know, to try to see how the cut, the feel, and whatnot. So, and one of the things that I went into one of the stores here that actually had a variety of different types, and they let you try them, you know. So that was really nice. Obviously, this is before COVID, so you know. But I really settled on the Wursthof and love these knives. But you do have to sharpen them because, wow. And it's amazing how quickly they, you know, after all the chopping and you know, whatever prepping that we do on a day-to-day basis. But
yeah, definitely.
And I just want to share a tip on the blender. There is a product here. It's called Lemi, Lemi Shine on this side of the pond. And it's basically citric acid is what it is, because I have noticed in my Vitamix that it gets like this cloudy film on the Vitamix. Okay.
Too. Yeah.
So it's buildup of the minerals from the, you know, we're making these smoothies and smashing all these minerals, and it just builds up onto the side of the Vitamix. So what I do is I take as hot as water as I can get, and I put it into the Vitamix. And I put some of the Lemi Shine in. I put it on the blender, you know, just spin it around for a few minutes. And then I let it sit overnight. And in the morning, it's incredible. It's clean, it's clear, it looks brand new almost, and it gets rid of most of that mineral buildup on that. I mean, the Lemi Shine is a product that's used in a dishwasher, and it's just citric acid. And it helps for places that have hard mineral water. Like in New England here where I live, like everybody has hard water. It's just a fact of life. So
that is super helpful, because my Vitamix is, yeah.
I know, because it looks like it's disgusting, and it's not like you're not cleaning it. I scrub it. I mean,
I couldn't work out because I do clean it. I promise I clean my, and the thing is you get your nail and you scratch at it and it's like rock hard, what these deposits, I don't know what you're right. It must be, it is minerals, isn't it? That's what it is. It has to be. Yeah. Jeanne, that's a genius tip. Thank you.
Do you know, I don't use it as much as you guys, but I haven't had it since 2006 or whatever, but it's a lot newer. But for some reason, I just put I think it was the avocado, to stop the avocado going off initially. I put just a little bit of lemon juice in, and I realized that was also keeping it clean.
Ah, well, lemon juice is also another acid.
Yeah.
So
fancy. There you go.
And I love that those silicone baking mats, making roast veggies on those. That sounds a very good idea, Jeanne.
Oh, it makes it so easy. And there's a lot of different silicone things. Like they have the silicone muffin liners, kind of things. And those are great because like I've done like, not just to use them for baking, but I'll take like beans and rice and put a little scoop in there and then freeze it. And then you can pop those out and use them. Or, just like if you need a small amount of something that you can freeze, it's great to freeze and just have that ready to go. So there's just a lot of different things that you can use those for. They're just, brilliant.
Yeah.
So Gareth, you're going to be talking about the 8th wonder of the world, which is your body. So.
Well, yes, the 8th wonder of the world. For some, you've heard about the 7 wonders of the world, of course. And the 8th wonder of the world up until this point in my life has been compound interest. If you understand that. And it's, but most people understand that, but don't really understand it until they make money with compound interest, And Frank talked about this subject a lot earlier on when he talked about doing the smaller things over time, and it takes time. And one of the reasons we don't get going, or we don't stick to things which make a positive difference, in my opinion, is that we don't see it today. You don't eat a bad meal today and get a heart attack tomorrow, or the other way around. You don't have a really nice diet today and be cured of all your sickness tomorrow. It takes time, it takes consistency and persistency, Jayney. I had persistency, a different P on that actually. I wanted to tell you a story today, and it's about 7 doctors, in fact, and then I'm going to talk to you about the 8th wonder of the world, which includes your body. And it's a story that I've experienced because I got a lot of catarrh when I was a lad. And I went to the doctor, and as it happened, this doctor was also called Davis, my second name, but no relation. And he was an old guy even then. I was probably, I first remember going maybe 10 or 12 years old, and which was a long time ago. And he was Dr. HLS Davis in Cardiff, because that's where I lived. And I said, look, I'm back here again for more medicine to cure my catarrh. And he said, no. He said, you can't do anything about it. Because I asked him, why do I get this? He said, it's because Cardiff is in a basin and it's actually called Catardiff. And he laughed, and I went, all right, okay. And I sort of accepted it then. This is a doctor telling a 12-year-old. So I continued to take the penicillin 2-3 times a year, every time I got blocked up, until I met the second doctor. And this was a guy who I had trouble with my knee, and I went to an osteopath. And this guy was a brilliant osteopath, and he was actually really helping ballerinas in London as well. He was traveling up to London once a month to help these ballerinas, because he knew every bone and every muscle in the body without referring to a book at all. He was incredible, a little bit crazy, I think, but incredible. And I told him about, I was still getting this problem with my sinuses. And he looked at me, and he was very direct. He just said, well, you shouldn't eat dairy. And I went, why not? He said, well, just do it. And I went, okay, I'll just take his advice. And from that moment on, I never had another issue. I've never had another issue with blocked sinuses, which was a consistent problem for me. So that was the start of me looking at my journey. And then some years later, perhaps 2 or 3 years later, I was in Bristol, and I was at a veg fest. And because by that time I, stopped eating dairy, so I consider myself a vegetarian. And I went to this veg fest, and I saw this book called The China Study. I thought, okay, I read the cover. I said, oh, it sounds interesting. I'm ready for this. I'll get through this. I'll get through this book. And that's written by Dr. Colin Campbell and his son Thomas. And an amazing, amazing book, which really hit me between the eyes at that time. And that made me go searching for other stuff. And in that book, there was reference to another doctor, a doctor called Dr. John McDougall. And so, long story short, I read some of his stuff. I ended up going to study under Dr. McDougall 3 times over the next couple of years, and took my family to America so they could experience it. And it was incredible. So that's what I call he was the 4th wonder of the world. The 5th one was someone I met on that journey to America, and was just around the corner from Dr. McDougall, but I didn't really fully understand what he was talking about the first time I met him. And I want to get that message over to people is, if you don't understand, when even some of these 3 doctors I'm associated with here, when they talk about it, even though I get it, you know, you may not get it initially if you don't have experience of a plant-based diet. And I didn't understand what Dr. Doug Lisle was talking about when he talked about something that Frank has just mentioned in a different way in his book, The Pleasure Trap. And it's about the brain adaptation, how long it takes to get used to certain foods, and for our brain to understand the changes that we're making to our diet in our body. So he was the 5th one. And then the 6th one was another American doctor. And I was knocked out when I saw this. And you can very easily see a real visual way this guy made a difference, which is Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. If you just go to his website, and on his front of his website, he's got these 3 pictures, maybe called cardiograms or maybe. And you can see an artery now, next year, and a year after. And you can see what happened to this artery in real time each year, on when the diet was changed by this guy, from a blocked artery to a partially blocked artery to a completely clear, healthy artery. And I just thought, wow, that is, it's a wonder of the world. This is that a heart could actually be healed. Then we get to, 7, 8, and 9. Well, you've been listening to those guys today, if you've been watching this. And there is so much available for free, I have to say, most of it, from Frank, from Jayney, from Jeanne, that if you don't take advantage of that, this is just me talking, they don't know I'm going to say this, but if you don't take advantage of going to their site, of picking up the freebies, of watching the videos, of listening to the recordings, I mean, even something like Jayney talked about, a machine you can buy to put on your chest and get you back to sleep. She's got something on her website that gets me to sleep almost every night if I need it, So go there and search this stuff, because it's free. And these guys have, they're really the 7th wonder of the world. So the 8th wonder of the world, I put 2 things together in there, which is what I talked about right at the beginning, which is compound interest. The compound effect of changing to a plant-based diet is amazing, but you don't see, or you might not see it very quickly. You might see it quickly within a few days, a week with certain things, but most things like heart disease, it's going to be over years, over decades. But you know what? The body is so powerful, and it's so capable of healing itself, given the right environment and the right food and drink, that it doesn't matter how old you are. You can heal yourself. Your body can heal itself of major diseases, even if they're quite established in you, So don't underestimate what it can do when you give your body the right things, and over time you experience compound interest in health. Thanks.
Wow, that was brilliant. That really was. I enjoyed hearing that and your journey. And especially just eliminate dairy, get rid of it. Why? Just do it. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Absolutely amazing, Gareth. Thank you so much. Absolutely superb. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that when you what's really came home for me there with what you were saying was that people really don't understand just how capable a body is of healing itself. When I tell people that I went from being 10 years in a wheelchair to actually within a space of 3 weeks, just 3 weeks, when I first went vegan, raw vegan, I went from, being told I would never walk again and completely dependent upon other people for everything, to actually being able to walk 3 miles up and down the beach every day, followed by 2 hours back-to-back Pilates and yoga classes. It is my mind is still blowing. It's still blown. And what I was going to say was that, if, in a way, because that happened a long time ago, you look back at it and you think, gosh, did that really happen? But you see, the thing is, it really did. And I also think one of the problems is that we can see, people adopt these changes, they make these changes. And I think the problem is that sometimes it goes a bit wrong, because I think we then tend to think, gosh, I'm okay now. It's just, I just changed my diet for 3 weeks and it's now rejigged all my body chemistry and I'm okay now. I can go back to eating the way I was eating, which for me wasn't terrible. It was actually, what was back then in the 90s touted as being a healthy diet, oily fish and salads and a glass of red wine. But for me, it wasn't right. And I was just getting, the inflammation levels was just getting worse and worse and worse. And it took me, going back to what Frank was saying, and what you were saying, Jeanne, you fall off the wagon 7 times, but you get back up that 8th time. And I kept sort of going back and forward, back and forward, back and forward to, sort of plant-based, not plant-based, plant-based, not plant-based. The thing that finally, once, decided it for me was seeing that actually, yes, there was definitely a relationship between me being able to walk or me not being able to walk. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, I then also saw the documentaries like Earthlings and Forks Over Knives and Eating and so on, and suddenly realized and made the connection, oh, there's this whole animal rights issue as well that goes hand in hand with all of this. And that was the thing that then, for me, flipped that switch and enabled me to actually, just totally, have the changes integrated into my life and so on. But just 3 weeks for me, that's all it took.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I remember doing a retreat and I know you'll have seen this sort of thing, but I remember taking, I was holding a retreat in Spain and I had a lady come along and she'd had all sorts of really horrendous health problems. But on this retreat, it was only a 7-night retreat and 6 nights, 7 days. And she lost 1.5 stone. And we were not eating. We were eating, believe me, we were eating. We were eating the finest, most gorgeous plant-based meals. Lots and lots of food, piled high, fabulous chef who really knew what he was doing. And my goodness, yet still she dropped 1.5 stone and she was not morbidly obese by a long chalk. But it just goes to show when you give the body the nutrients that it needs, it lets go of all of the stuff that it doesn't need.
Well, again, you're absolutely right, Jane, and we don't see it over time. We don't see the effect it's having. And now, I'm 61 now, so some of the people I played football with, and I look back at, I was looking back last week. This is really what got me onto this. So I was looking back at a bag of old photographs, and my wife said, "Oh, you need to catalog them instead of just having them in a plastic bag." But there's a lot of football shots in there, and I'm looking at these team photographs.
Yeah.
And he's passed away. He's got cancer. He's got diabetes. He's so big that he can't move around anymore. And here am I. I'm not trying to big myself up. I'm just saying it's the effect of the diet in an almost perfect blood pressure, whatever that is, about 110 over 80, and a heart rate of 49 most days. It's so frustrating to see, isn't it? Sometimes to see people, because they can be this close to being successful, but they just don't keep it going for long enough, and they never experience what they could.
I will say another observation, actually, Gareth, and this isn't sort of just to be like all sucky and everything, but I was just going to say that actually I didn't realize that you just turned 61, and I would challenge anybody to actually be able to accurately guess your age. And I don't know if you feel the same, Jeanne. I don't know if you feel, but Gareth looks remarkably many decades younger than his actual chronological age.
True.
It'd be really interesting to actually sort of work out your biological age, because I think you'd come in decades younger.
Yeah.
Well,
put it all down to the plant-based diet. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I've got a girlfriend, and we went to school together. And she's 3 days older than I am, and I frequently point that out to her. So, but if you look at the two of us side by side, it's like, oh my God, she's already had several strokes. She's got type 2 diabetes. She's got gout. She's got all these issues and health issues she's constantly posting on Facebook. And after the first stroke, I went over to her house and I spent the weekend with her. I bought her pans. I bought her food. I bought her the movie Forks Over Knives had just come out. So I bought her a copy of the movie. We sat down and watched it together. And she went plant-based for about 6 months. Yeah. And she was like, oh my God, my type 2 diabetes is coming down. My blood sugars are phenomenal. And she was starting to see a lot of changes. But she went out one day on a ride, and they went past this place that is a local icon where we grew up called Blackie's, and they're renowned for their hot dogs. And she stopped, got a hot dog, and that was it. That she spiraled out of control and never went back. So she fell down, but she never got back up. And I continue to see, and if you look at the difference between the two of us, it's like, oh, wow, night and day. And you're right, Gareth. I mean, and I have friends who've already passed away and have died of cancer or this health or that, especially where I grew up I grew up in Connecticut. And there's this one area of town that is renowned for cancer. And it's because underneath where this area is, they did a lot of mining back in the day, like in the 1800s. So there's a lot of chemicals that are being released up in the houses that were built on it. This pocket of the area of these people all have cancer. And you can they created a website for it of our town because of this area where these people live it's a very high incidence of cancer. So it's just crazy when you start to see and look back at, the class that I was in when I graduated high school, like a lot of them are gone. And, and I just turned 60 myself. And, it's like, when you see this and you see the power of this, it's like, if you look back in nature and just think back to nature, all animals, they're born, they live, have a good life, and then they die very quickly. And it's the same if you look at rural China, circling back to the China study, those people would live a very, very healthy, long life, and then usually pass away in their sleep one night. Mm-hmm. And it would happen very quickly. With a short period of time where you just start not feeling well, and then you quickly die. But I think we may be living longer, but we're dying slower. And it's so sad to see this progression. And so to know that we can make these changes, and even like Eric Adams, who's currently running for mayor of New York City, his mother, who had been diabetic for 30 years on heavy drugs, insulin, heavy drugs, in 4 months was able to reverse her diabetes in 4 months after 30 years. So the body is so resilient, as you said, Jayney, and if we give it the chance and we stop abusing it and start putting the right foods into it and exercising, and I just got to put this out there because we've got to get the toxins out, because we're being exposed to a lot of toxins in our personal care products, the environment, what we're doing. And we can't be perfect, but there's a lot of things we can do. So. Mm-hmm.
Can I just mention another thing which I think is really important? And I was just thinking back to, what have I done to get these results? And one thing which I haven't mentioned, which is really important in there, 30 years ago, I invested in something, and I probably invested 2 or 3 times since with moving houses, and that's a top quality water filtration system. So I would say 99% of the water I've ingested in the last 30 years has been cleaned by an ultraviolet light and a carbon block filter in one through a filter. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that makes a big difference.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And I know Frank had to go because he had another appointment. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions you'd like us to dive into, you can message us through Facebook, social media, or our website, healthchangers.net, because your health is worth working for. Please make every bite count, every action count. And if you need help, all of us here can help you on your journey.
We sure can.